Hello, world. Welcome to A24 on the Rocks. I will be your host this evening, Cole William Whitlaw Gibson, resident Canadian and Alaskan now, so living in the Great White North. Staying away from all the tariffs. Don't know how that's going for everybody, but whatever. Tonight we're going to be reviewing Climax, the 2018 French film about a bunch of French dancers that gather in a remote school building to rehearse and turns into a bunch of debauchery and weirdness when someone laces the LSD. But first, let's go to our my lovely co-hosts and see what they're drinking tonight. Kevin, let's go to you first.
Hey everybody, it's me, Kevin K. Konachek, and I'm back on the whiskey train. Not that I ever really left, but I found a nice bottle of the Sazerac Rye straight whiskey the other day. And if you can find that on the shelf for MSRP, you're like, I'm going to go ahead and buy a couple of them. It's only 90 proof, which makes it really easy to drink, and I can have a couple of them without feeling like I'm going to die. So there's that. Whiskey is great, and it's something I need to review this film. That's for damn sure. Anyway, I mean, money laundering is important. What episode was that from?
True.
Oh, from
Outlaws?
Outlaws, yeah. Because you have to have a legit money launderer.
Yeah.
Why did you feel like that was relevant here?
I wanted to just play it after you.
Doesn't matter the context. I'm playing it
That's
soon as Kevin talks.
Yep, that's what it felt like, for sure. So that's me. Yeah.
All right, Eric, you're up next. What are you drinking? What's going on?
What do you know? I'm drinking some sangria tonight, and I've got it
appropriate.
Not spiked with anything.
I was about to say, is it laced?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Is it the only good thing you've ever done in your life?
Yes, definitely.
All right, what about the
Is that a reference to the child? I don't remember.
It's a direct quote
From this film about like the kid, right?
Wait, shit.
Yes.
What, was I supposed to respond with something good?
No.
I don't remember the response to. Okay. Anyway,
We'll get
I'm gonna be honest.
sorry.
I couldn't tell you any of the dialogue that occurred in this film. But let's go to Dan and Becky. What are you guys drinking? What's going on? Tell me about your life. Any new tariffs?
Well, no tariffs, but also zero gasoline or diesel. So that's been fun.
Okay, so
don't
you guys
have
are
any
like
gas?
pro Tesla. Sweet.
Yes. No, there is no
burn
gas.
us to the ground.
Oh no.
There is no gas in Bolivia right now.
Yeah.
That's
that's
wild.
crazy.
oh,
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
you
getting
walk
rough.
everywhere.
Schools might go online soon. We'll see. But
so you're
it's
just
pretty
walking
bad.
everywhere, or?
Yeah, well, we live about 3 minutes away from our office, so we're
Okay.
not super
That's
reliant on the car. Yeah.
Take a
Your
bike.
school is already online, right? So you're okay there too.
No.
Oh.
No,
Okay.
no.
What do
Only,
I know?
only if they
Ignore
need
that
to
part.
be. Nothing, Jon Snow. So I am enjoying a beer from a city here called Uyuni, which is the gateway to the largest salt flat in the world. So I'm enjoying one of their beers here tonight.
Sick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What kind of beer is it? Does it say? Is it a lager?
yeah, it's a lager.
It
It's
is
just
a-
your simple lager.
A premium lager.
Well, sorry, it does say premium on there, but it's your simple
that's how they
lager.
charge an extra $1 per can.
Yeah.
Although I think Bud Light says premium on there, so that really shouldn't tell you anything.
And I myself am also drinking Bolivian beer this evening. I am drinking Paseña, which is I would say the most representative beer of Bolivia, definitely the most popular. It is a Pilsner. It's pretty sweet. I find it to have a relatively sweet flavor, but it's pretty nice. It works well with the hot weather in this part of the country, so pretty nice in that way. But yeah, just
Little
your
shandy-esque.
standard Pilsner, yeah.
Pilsner in the sun,
yeah.
always delicious. Can't go wrong.
Very good. Well, I'm glad. I hope everyone's drinks are good and not laced with anything. A24 on the Rocks. As we get into, like I mentioned, we're going to be reviewing the 2019 film Climax. Follows a bunch of French dancers in a remote school, and they're wrapping up their final night of rehearsal and things start going south. Has anyone heard of this movie, watched this movie, or any relation to it? I was not familiar with it.
Nothing.
Heard of it? Did not watch it. I think when I was in high school, Enter the Void came out, which was another Gaspar Noe film, and that was just known as like the POV You're on Acid film before any of us, well, at least I didn't take acid yet in high school, and everybody would watch that in high school and be like, oh, this is what it's like, yeah. So that film was kind of famous when it came out, but yeah, I never saw Climax.
Yeah, I was familiar with Gaspar Noe's name from that first film. Other than that, I had no idea that Climax was part of the A24 library, and I certainly went out of my way to avoid any sort of trailers or descriptions at all. I knew French, and I knew dancers. That's it. So imagine my surprise as we got into the film.
Yeah, no knowledge on our part either,
No,
and
zero.
not a film that would have come on our radar, I don't think, had we not joined this podcast. So I don't know if that's for the better or the worse, but
Yeah, we'll find out.
We'll determine that here by the end of this next hour.
Yeah, so I also never seen this film, not familiar with it. Has anyone in this podcast have any experience with like dance or any performing arts or doing any of those things? I, for one, am not talented at all, so I've done none of those things. So,
I mean, sure. In high school, I was in show choir, so I did a lot of choreographed dancing. I've been in plays that involved choreography and musicals that involved dancing and swordplay and things on the stage. So, sure, I have some experience with rehearsing in large groups when it comes to things like that. Yeah, and I'd say that probably pretty similar expectations of people coming together. They're all cast from different walks of life, and you have to learn each other's personalities in a small amount of time, and then rehearsal is nothing but business. And then, of course, the partying afterwards. So, yeah, I have some experience, and I'd say it was close to my experience, but not anywhere near my experience, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Close and far away at the same time.
Yes, very much so. Yes, absolutely.
Fair enough.
I could also say that about my experience with LSD as well, but we're not there yet.
Not yet. Let's talk about the opening scene. So it opens up with like very like snowfall, woman, top down view of her walking through the snow. Eric, what were your thoughts on the intro to this film?
We're starting out heavy. We're starting out right off the bat like it's going to be a thrill ride. Here we are right away, and then it cuts to the intro, which then I was like, okay, Gaspar Noe I know is an experimental director and likes to experiment with timelines and chronology and everything. So I guess when it cut like back to kind of the intros and everything, I was like, okay, I think I know this director is gonna fuck with me this whole film.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I was the intro, I guess my question was, how does a bunch of French dancers get to this point? Because that was my only experience was it was a French dance movie. So what about you, Becky? Let's go into kind of like where they start introing all of the, you have the snow, and then it kind of cuts to the VHS of everybody kind of saying who they are, where they're from, and what their style. What were your thoughts on that part of it?
I mean, I thought it was a really cool intro. Like, I don't really have a better word for that. I found it very cool how the camera panned along the snow, following her track. Then you get just snow, and then that tree, that just barren tree comes into the scene. I was very interested, had the same thought of how the hell does a group of dancers get that, right? Bloody, dragging through the snow. And then the interviews, I thought it was a great transition because you're bloody and in the snow. So clearly we're dealing with a kind of flashbacky type story. We're starting at the end and then we're going to work our way there. And so going straight from that very end to the very beginning of these interview scenes where the TV looks much older than the entire rest of the movie. It's all crackly, and that it intrigued me from the beginning, and I was interested at this point.
What about you, Dan? How did you? What was your thoughts on like the TV, the framing, and those interviews with the books on the side, and how they did that?
Yeah, so actually, I made an interesting observation of the books, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I saw Un Chien Andalusia on the side, which is a Pixies, right? In the Pixies song that they sing, that's part of a lyric on the song Debaser. So I thought that was kind of funny to notice that. But yeah, the interviews in retrospect, I think after you watch the whole film make a little bit more sense once you've seen the sort of story unfold and why they're featuring the parts that they're featuring. So I thought that was kind of cool. It was very ghostly, right? I liked the design of the way that the interviews looked. I was really interested in the credit roll at the beginning, right? It was really sort of disorienting, made me feel kind of weird. Yeah, I was like, this is really strange, and all the small text, and there's certain names in red, right? So I liked that design. And so, yes, I think it did hook me, at least at the beginning.
Yeah, I noticed some of the movies on the side, too. Suspiria, Possession, Harikari, and Taxi Driver was there, too, which I think are a lot of films that have influenced Gaspar Noe. And then I also saw a Nietzsche book, which I think there's a few Nietzsche books, or Nietzsche quotes in here. I mean, I don't know if this is actually a Nietzsche quote, but existence is a fleeting illusion. That sounds very Nietzsche, but that pops up on the screen in big, bold letters briefly. Started to note the other quotes that pop up on the screen briefly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the only one that I was familiar with was Suspiria.
Suspiria, yeah, because that was remade in like 2018.
Yeah, Amanda and I watched it, and it's another dance movie that gets real weird. Movie? Yeah, it's about like some ballet dancers type thing, and it gets pretty interesting. But
aren't there like witches and stuff in that film?
Yeah, it gets into like some like the occult and some weird body dysmorphia stuff, and
I read a Reddit post where they combined these two films into the same universe.
Yeah, I could 100% see it. So that was the only one I was familiar with. But I agree with Dan and Becky where that the kind of like the ghost image, and then when you transition from one to the other, and then the scrolling like credits at the beginning, it almost kind of stressed me out, especially when the credits were going through, because there's so much, and I'm just like, I don't know French, so I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and then they're just scrolling so fast, and then it changes, and then it just goes to this like kind of like almost like found footage feeling of, hey, this is, these are all the people that showed up to this thing that obviously didn't go well, and you're gonna find out why and be taken on this very interesting trip. And then it goes into then it kind of cuts back into just a very a dance scene, which is the only like choreographed part of this whole movie. So Kevin, what are you want to give me your thoughts on the kind of that choreograph?
That was wild, right? So you kind of had this idea from the interviews that they were kind of coming together for some joined performance, and then you see this. And it was longer than I was anticipating. We're talking like, what, 3-4 months plus minutes? We're talking a very long, elaborate, choreographed scene. And at the time when we're first getting into it, I'm like, why spend so much time on this one scene? I also didn't really know how experimental of a film I was getting myself into at the beginning. So I'm still trying to treat this like a regular film. And it's anything but a regular film, right? So I'm trying to, like, as watching it, being like, oh, that's cool. They're, the choreograph's good. What if they mess up? I'm waiting at any point in time for someone just to fall on their face, because after 5 minutes of going, and if someone makes up, you have to start over again. So I'm like, oh, that's the plot. That's where they're going. Someone's going to screw up on their big elaborate choreography. And that didn't happen. It was very avant-garde, very offbeat, very just unique in the styles of the choreography. We had crazy people doing all sorts of weird motions in different solos, and it was just a unique expression of dance, right? And again, I had no idea what I was getting myself into with this film, so I was like, okay, you're putting a lot of eggs in this dance basket. Let's see what happens with this. Clearly, they were the celebration after completing something like that after 3 days, and they talk about it a little bit, right? The surprise, like you all come together and you learn something, because learn all of that, completely memorize that in 3 days would be a huge undertaking. It would absolutely be, from someone who's done some stage stuff and having to memorize a lot of choreography, all of that down to a T would have resulted in several hours, like 8 to 12 hours every day for 3 days to pull that off. So I was impressed. It was great.
Yeah. So this movie is basically a 90-minute film, which is right in my sweet spot and I love. Eric, what are your thoughts on this dance scene and like basically being an uncut, fully fleshed out, choreographed dance number? Do you think it was too long or?
No, fucking awesome. I loved it. All the voguing.
Hell yeah.
And so I guess also at the start it says, to our makers that are no longer with us, true story from France, 1996. So this is all taking place in 1996, and it's very mid-90s electronic, mid-90s techno, and then a lot of the dance reminds me of like hip-hop dance too. Mm-hmm. So I really enjoyed that whole scene. And then I'll say just right from the start, my favorite dancer and character in this whole film is the contortionist. Just contorting his body in the most inappropriate times, but then at the start it seems like just like the right time. So, yeah.
Fair enough. Dan and Becky, you guys have any inputs on the dance number?
Yeah, I mean, agree with Eric's first statement for sure. I fucking loved it. I found it mesmerizing to watch. Okay? And like keeping it all together as the camera's just moving in and out and through, focusing on some people, coming back out to the whole group. I found it mesmerizing. And the type of dancing, a lot of what was going on is crimping, which, to be fair, I didn't just ignore your first question. I only know that because of one of the Bring It On movies. Right? I did not feel like saying that I had watched Bring It On qualified as experience with anything to do with this film. But those jerky movements, while it was mesmerizing, those jerky movements of that style of dance was also fairly disturbing at the same time. So it was that feeling of not being able to look away from what was happening, but also not fully understanding what was going on.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm trying not to let my retrospective view of the film ruin what I felt at the time. So I'm kind of sticking to my notes here. So spoiler alert, I really didn't like the film overall. But at this moment, what? At this moment, yeah, I did like it. I think the choreography was incredible. The long take was amazing, right? The camera work, we haven't really mentioned that, right? But the use of the long take there was really cool. The camera kind of flows like the dancers, right? You've got this sort of building confusion. I felt that, after that intro scene and those sort of disturbing ghostly images on the screens, you had this sort of building confusion. You got these little glimpses of personality as they dance too, which, I mean, there was really no character building in the film. So I think those little glimpses were important for what they were worth. So yeah, at that point, it did look and feel pretty cool, albeit I do feel like it went a little bit too long.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess, doing my notes on it was, I felt like it was too long. I felt like I liked where it was going, but then after about a minute and a half, I was like, man, they're still going, like they're doing it. And they just like kept going. And I was like, okay, we're doing like the full gamut. And I appreciate, like, it was all very, very good dancing and stuff. But I guess in the back of my mind, all I could think was like, it's a 90-minute film and you're putting a lot of, I guess, trust or a lot of the percentage of the film into this dance number. But
I guess that shot was, the starting shot at least, was 13 minutes long, and five of those 13 minutes were dancing.
Yeah, it felt like 5 minutes for sure.
Yeah. Eventually we get a whole 42-minute like shot, one long shot, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, with the choreography too, something that I just remembered, because I did do some reading about this afterwards because of how fascinated I was by everything going on. While it is the only choreographed part of this movie, it was also choreographed on the fly as they were filming. And they went through 15 takes, and in every take, they added more and more to it. And they chose the 14th take that they did to actually put into the movie. So choreographed, yes, but also still zero actual planning going into it.
Yeah, and that includes the screenplay, right? There was like basically no screenplay to this movie. Yeah, it was all improvised.
And can I just talk for a moment about the long takes? And I don't know if we're going to come back to that, but okay.
No, we can definitely jump into the long takes for sure.
So I like it. I do like, I think about Children of Men, right? That is like one of my favorite long takes ever. And then I look at this And it's kind of like, yeah, I get what you're trying to do, but it felt sort of wasted, right? Like that, the skill and the technical, aspects of it, it felt kind of wasted to me in the film. And so I kind of lost it, except for the juxtaposition when you kind of have the individual people interacting and you've got these short takes there contrasting those long takes. But I don't know. I like it, but I don't.
I'm going to just say right off the bat that I disagree, and I think this is going to be the fork in the road. But I really thought this was a film that you should feel and not think too much about. And I just liked sitting, watching the screen, and feeling everything that was going on. And those long takes, I actually thought added to the film for me. But
fair enough. I do see that.
I wonder, Eric, if you knowing what you were getting yourself into, knowing the director, knowing a little bit of kind of that experience sets you not. I'm just putting what I would have needed to do to have been in your same shoes, where I'm trying to enjoy it as opposed to me constantly going, "What the fuck am I watching?" Because that's all I really
stop thinking so much.
Right, and maybe that's hard. Again, reviewing a movie, watching a film to review it is not the same as just enjoying the film. So I got to somehow shut that off.
And because, I also got to say, I didn't know that much about this film, what it was going to be about. I did read French dance group, psychological horror, but nothing of Enter the Void really prepared me for what I was going to watch here.
That's fair. Yeah. Here's my 2 cents on the long take. I like when a movie insists on the style that it is going for, meaning that from the beginning to the end, you're going to continually use that style of filming. So we had already talked about it, right? The first long take is 15, but the next long take is 42. So this film uses the long take in its entirety, which I appreciate. When you do a POV style film like this is, where you're truly a fly on the wall or walking among the party, the only way to really accomplish that feeling that you're in the room is to stay in the room for an extended period of time. The only way to do that, in my opinion, is by doing that long particular take. I can see why our writer-director went with this, but it also probably feels a little bit like if I'm improvising everything else, if I'm letting the dialogue just speak for itself and whatever else, the only way to do this is just to put the camera on and just hold it there and just see what happens, which results in what we see. I think this is the best time to talk about this. Gaspar Noe says, after this film came out, I've never received more praise or told I did a good job for little to no effort. He really didn't think what he did was groundbreaking, revolutionary, or difficult. He just put a camera, told some people to be like, hey, you got a bunch of LSD, figure out how to act like it, and resulted in what we're seeing, which is great because it's art, so it's all interpretive, and it's all whatever you want it to be. I think that he probably just got lucky that it turned out the way it did for the people that enjoy this film, and it was just throwing a camera at the wall. At least that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in on the long take. So yeah, as you guys mentioned, there's a 42-minute long take. There's a long take at, with the dance scene and stuff. I guess would consider myself a very big fan of long takes. I like the movie 1917. Old Boy has one of the greatest long take fighting sequences. Daredevil, the TV show, also has an amazing long take fighting sequence. Big and Children of Men is a fantastic film that we've reviewed with an amazing long
talked
take.
About the long take during it because it was so famous.
Go back and listen to it if you haven't.
Oh yeah, there you go. There's a little plug.
Let's plug our podcast at our podcast.
I don't know how that works.
We just have to come up with an episode number. Eric's gonna have to edit and splice.
Just scroll down. It's not that far down. It came out right before the election last year, the American election. So it's early November.
We have to clarify that now.
Yeah. So
the Bolivian election, guys.
Yeah, the American election. Anyway, back to Climax.
Back to Climax.
But I think I maybe lean more towards Dan, where I felt like this long take, some of the 1917 and the Daredevil and Old Boy and stuff like that, they're very action packed and very grand scales. And seeing these long takes, you just think about how every long take's very difficult. I'm not saying that this one isn't difficult to do, but it felt more akin to what Kevin was saying, where you're just kind of a fly on the wall, just following, and you're just seeing things happen versus, some of these other ones are extremely well choreographed and take thousands of hours to complete, and they're just become kind of cinematic marvels. Well, this, obviously trends more towards the experimental and the long take just seems like, like really what happened was, just have a bunch of people kind of improv what the expectations are. And we can, let's just jump into it where, they the after party. So they do their after party, or they do their rehearsal, and they start celebrating and, winding down as everyone does after any of these events, if you've done theater or anything like that. And they have sangria. It's, and, then everybody finds out that it's been spiked with LSD. But before that, they start kind of, maybe doing some character building, but really the character building is they have a camera that's just pointed at one part, and they kind of cut in between all these different groups of people after, and you kind of find out more about them. Kevin, what was your thoughts about how they just had a steady cam? Almost felt like I was watching like I don't know, what are those like reality TV shows where they have like the confession booths?
Yeah.
And they kept cutting. What was your thoughts about that, and kind of like the dialogue and
foreign language films? Right? So let's talk about that. We've got a couple of them in the A24 library up until this point, and this one's not completely foreign language, but it still qualifies as a foreign language film. So you're having to read the subtitles and put the characters' facial expressions and the vibrance of their dialogue and all of those things, but you're putting the words in your own brain. So I think that was interesting for me, watching the two dudes talk about the sex, right? And how somehow the dialogue didn't necessarily match up to what I was envisioning their facial expressions and everything else. Like, that was interesting. I like that you brought up the idea about character building, because you're right. It only exists so that when the worst happens, when the things start happening later, you can kind of associate something you already know about that. First, we get the interview with them in the beginning of the movie. Now we get this glimpse behind the curtain a little bit where we start learning about their relationships, whether it's the brother and the sister, whether it's the sex guy, whether it was the dude who doesn't do any drugs and alcohol, which we find out later about what happens there, whether it's, the two lesbians, whether it's the mom with, all these little things. You have to have that 30 seconds to a minute or whatever to make the rest of the film even at all understandable. Like, there's not a thread in this film. There's not really a plot. There's not really a script. But without this character building moment, without this little bit of calm before the storm, it's even more undigestible and more ridiculous if we don't have those moments. So I appreciated the direction that they put with those in there.
Yeah. Let's go to Dan. Kind of similar question. We talked about the cutting of the intercutting and getting the kind of people's backgrounds. But also I want to know, were you able to keep track of the names of the characters or who was who throughout this process?
No, not at all. And normally that wouldn't concern me, right? But when I'm getting ready to talk about it on a podcast, I should probably know. But then I figured that it probably wasn't really important, because honestly, this was the first moment of the film where I started to really feel like this is starting to feel forced. That early on, it was like, this, I get what they're trying to do here, but why am I going to care about any of these people? Why am I going to care about what happens? And I guess maybe I'm not supposed to. Like, Eric said, maybe we're just on the ride, for that part, okay. But this was the first part of it where I really felt like, okay, so there's not going to be a main character. There's not really going to be a plot here. There's not really going to be a climax, if you will, in the traditional sense.
See what you did there, buddy.
So yeah, I
think you asked for the teachers.
TKO.
You asked for the teachers.
So yeah, I think for me, that's just, it's where things, at that initial dance scene, and like we talked about, up until this part of the film, I was interested in it from an artistic standpoint. I thought maybe we'd be going somewhere cooler, and then once we got a few minutes into this, I started to feel bored fairly early on.
No. Dan, I'm going to throw this to you, Becky. Dan brought up an interesting point about no main character. Did you think there was a main character, or do you think that there was no main character? And do you, I guess, how does that work, and your general thoughts about that?
So I do agree that I don't think there was a main character, but I do think there was a minor character. I think Selva was definitely, a strong minor character, but I don't think you can call anybody a main character.
Do you think that hurt the film or added to it, or maybe,
I don't think it hurt it, because I think to get any sort of enjoyment out of this film, you had to not look for lines of connection. You had to, like what's been brought up, you had to be able to feel what they were feeling. Right? And I think that was the strength of this film, because throughout these after party cuts between, almost documentary interview style chatting, you do start to very slowly at first see the shift into something's not quite right. Like, you get the sense, they're just getting pretty drunk at first, but then things do start to get weird very quickly. And the weird really started for me in that when you notice there was a kid involved in all of this, a kid just wandering around the bowl of sangria and partying and dancing with all of these fucked up adults. Like, that was one piece that really took away from the story. Why bother putting a kid in this situation? Right.
Let's go to you now, Eric. So, we talked, I guess, did you maybe feel the same as Dan, where you got bored when they were doing just those cuts between everybody, when they were just, I guess, character
just the
building?
talking went on a little bit long. I did want it to just get to the everybody's high in acid. I kind of agree with that.
Yeah.
But I do think that a lot of this talking was to show the misogyny in all the men, like constantly just misogynistic talking and, objectifying all the women there. It's put there to, try to character build a little bit, but to show, like, if you give these people a little acid, not a little, a lot of acid, I guess, there are definitely some devious people in this group, and their personal vendettas and anger will come out. I think it's put there to be like, later you're gonna like look back and be like, oh, all these people did have like a little bit of that in them, and then it just got it just exploded when 100%. All this acid got put in them.
Quite
and
literally give us an idea of what they might do if something bad or something like amplified happened. And sure as shit, the one talking about sex ends up having a lot of sex. Like, the brother and sister connection ends up going really weird. Like, so they did a good job of setting up like the baseline of what will eventually happen. And I feel like with a lot of these A24 films, again, it's like we've talked about this ad nauseum, when a film gets better when we talk about it. And sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But in this circumstance, I feel like I'm getting more out of it by just having a conversation than I ever did while watching it. And that's really unique, right? I don't know, it's all art and it's all subjective, but it's, that's cool part for me.
Well, sorry, just one more. Like before, like at the start, when everybody was just doing those TV, like we saw their interviews on the TV, and then we get all these conversations between everybody. I didn't even note like the names of most of these people, like everybody else is saying, but it's like I got their vibe. And like when I see them again, I'm just like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that person from that conversation and from that interview on the little TV, and I like kind of get why they're acting the way they are now. So anyway.
And two, sorry again, just one last thing on this, right?
This is a great conversation. Come on.
Right? It's not, I didn't find it just misogyny on the men's part. I think everybody was objectifying everybody almost. There, the one girl who wasn't drinking, she kind of disappeared pretty quickly, but everybody's talking about somebody in an overtly sexual way. And with the men, it comes out more aggressive because they are men. With the women, it's more of that kind of subtle emotional play on the other women. But also to the point of this being a mostly French language film. So I do speak French. It was my major in university. That being said, I'm a long time removed from actually using it. However, the way that they were actually speaking in French, it's like adult locker room talk, right? So it came out very blunt in the subtitles and very direct in the subtitles, but it's like getting with your friends and ribbing people and talking in a dirty way because it's fun and you can. And that is very French. That overtly sexual, like that sexual openness is incredibly French. They have always been very free with their bodies, open with expressions of sexuality in pretty much any way, shape, and form. So that just fit the writing for this story, the fact that it is French.
I do think the men were a bit sleazy, though. I will
yes.
say, like,
Yes.
Yeah.
But for me, like, that stuff feels pretty forced. And here, I guess, if I could assign any meaning to the actual story here, I guess it's about the human psyche, right? And you have the character psyche, right? Maybe a little on the nose. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. But at its heart, like, that's all it could be to me, right? So when I frame it that way, it's like, none of this is new. And it's like, yeah, okay, of course they're going to be shitty. Of course, like, it's this dance troupe. Of course there's going to be drama and who's fucking who. And, there's going to be, all this kind of stuff. So I don't know. It just felt really forced to me. It was like, yeah, of course. And so I don't know. I guess it didn't seem as important to me as it should have.
But also forced because, again, all of these lines are improvised. There was only one, maybe two people in the cast with actual acting experience. Nobody else had any acting experience, and it was fully improvised. Right? So I think some of that forced.
For having,
so think about that, right? So the writer-director says, hey, you two, have a dirty conversation about what you would do to somebody across the room if you just met them. And they just do that. That's actually, if I watched this again, I would watch it from a definitely different lens than the first time I'd watch it. Just because I knew what I was getting into, and I'd be able to kind of maybe appreciate it a little bit more.
And I don't want to diminish that because I do think it's a feat for that. And I didn't mention that when I was crapping on it a few moments ago. So yeah, credit where credit is due. Don't get me wrong. But just from a film viewing standpoint strictly and enjoying the film as the film was, that's how it felt.
And that's important in doing a movie review. People want to know that when we're talking about it. Like, how did you feel when watching the film? That's important for sure.
Yeah. Ceteris paribus, right? Like if I'm just watching it as a film, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think, Kevin, you touched on it earlier or mentioned kind of perfectly where to me, this film is one that you watch it to talk about it. It's not one that you watch for, like, I don't know, for pure entertainment or enjoyment or things like that. It's like, and I think that's maybe the whole point of these art house type films is you watch them to discuss them and kind of, see, talk about all the things. I would
watch this for pure entertainment. I would put it on a Friday night and to my friends, I would be like, you want to see a really fucked up movie? And I would just press play.
Yeah. You would be removed from privileges of picking movies from your friend group if you suggested this on a Friday night and you're all hanging out.
Yeah, I guess my question...
If we're all hanging out, I would totally put this on the background and I would be like, don't worry about it. Just, have it on.
But then...
Continue on our conversation.
But this movie would then cause them...
Suffice it to say, I'd be happy.
100%.
Suffice it to say, I'd be happy that I hadn't seen you in 10 years. 15.
But, Eric, you just said that you would put this on with a group of friends. The whole point of putting this movie on is you're, like, fucking with people to get them to start talking about it. Are you going to put this on a Friday night where you're just alone and you want to watch a movie?
Alone? No, this is better watched with other people.
Because you want to talk about
it. That's why.
It's fucking weird is what it is. But
sometimes weird is entertaining, which
weird is entertaining.
It's my major point of the film, which I'll get to later.
Yeah.
Art house. Definition of fucking art house.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So, as we've alluded to and talked about, the sangria gets spiked. Everyone starts tripping and going down crazy pathways of LSD, and none of them were planning on doing LSD except for maybe one. My question to everybody, has anyone had a similar experience where they got LSD or maybe had ate a brownie or a cookie or something that they did not realize and had an interesting experience? Looks like someone that may have.
Dan, are we admitting to this online or not?
Of course it's together.
If you guys don't
Why
want to
would I
talk
expect
about
differently?
Yeah.
So Dan and I have had the pleasure of doing LSD together in the same house at the same time, and it was a lot of fun. I've done it on multiple occasions, and I've never done a lot. Like, I've done maybe 2 tabs at the most, so I'm not talking like a mind-altering life decision. But I will say, my personal experience with LSD made this viewing experience a little more unique because I could vibe a little bit with what they were feeling. Some of the emotions, I always talk about LSD as all 5 of the senses that you feel in your body at the same exact time. Normally, touch, smell, there's something else is diminished as the other ones are heightened. With LSD, all of them are completely opened up and you feel everything all at once. And I feel like this film did a really good job of, hey, if you take a lot of it, you're going to feel everything. You're going to feel the music. You're going to feel the sexual desire. You're going to feel the violence. You're going to feel the hunger. You're going to feel the tiredness. You're going to feel the insanity. You're going to feel all of it. And that was accurate to me. I could picture what would happen in a bad trip. When you prepare for taking LSD, because you do have to prepare. You got to put yourself in the right mindset. You'll be around the right people. They talk about the idea that if you're in your negative space, you'll likely have a negative time. And I think that's really important. This film is kind of talking about what can happen during a bad trip. And, there was one scene where one of the characters looks at a mirror and freaks the fuck out. And I remember being warned when you first take acid, don't look into a mirror. Like, stay away from a mirror. It's not good. You'll get into a perpetual loop where you're kind of looking at yourself and all of yours. Exactly.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think they did a good job of at least giving all the actors probably a bunch of references. Like, hey, this is what happens when people take a bunch of acid. Take it, run with it. I don't think they were on acid themselves, but they certainly were acting like what I would assume someone taking, and we're talking a what they call a god dose, like the top of the line, like
macro dose.
Insane amounts, not just a couple of tabs, but like if someone just dropped an entire just distilled bottle into a fucking vat of sangria. So I digress a little bit, but that's my 2 cents.
I mean, I agree with Kevin that, having had a few experiences with it in my younger, sprier years, I do think that helps you understand it a little bit, like the feeling that they're trying to create in the film. But yeah, I've never taken a lot, certainly never been drugged. I think to your original point, Cole, I don't think, no, I've never been drugged in any way, shape, or form, luckily. But yeah, I think, I look back on it fondly. I did look in a mirror and I saw my face as a rat. So I don't know what that means, but I remember it very clearly.
Wild.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. During my younger years, I've also partaken, and some roommates and we all did it. And I guess when I watched this movie, all I could think about was not what I experienced at all. I had a good time. I had a very nice, enjoyable time. But again, Kevin mentioned it's all about the mindset. And I think if I was hanging out, drinking alcohol, and then finding out that happened, definitely puts you in a whole different mindset and a mood.
With a bunch of strangers that you don't know anything about.
Yes, that's also the thing. Like, yeah, you do it in a safe space. You do it with people you know and trust. And I also had a roommate that went to the bathroom, and we lost him for 2 hours in the mirror. So that is a real thing to stay away from mirrors. So,
and I mean bathrooms too, or especially porta potties. If you've ever seen It's Always Sunny, so.
Yep.
If you take LSD and end up in a porta potty, something has gone like pretty terrible.
A lot of music fests have a lot of porta potties.
Okay,
like,
fair enough.
Never been to Fish.
Fair enough.
You
got me
careful.
there.
You've ever been to a Fish show? Yeah.
You just gotta go to the porta potty at some point because
I will say
outside,
the most LSD I've ever taken in my life was at a live music.
For the
venue.
love of God, don't fall in.
So.
What? I said, just for the love of God, don't fall in.
Oh, don't fall. Yeah, don't fall in. Oh, God.
All right, so everybody has in the film has realized that the punch bowl has been spiked, and they're all starting to freak out, and they all start kind of divulging into their different versions of hell, is kind of what is described by the director. Eric, what was your thoughts about kind of the use of color in some of those scenes, especially when they get further in, when the power goes out and some of that stuff? Like, how did you think about the cinematography and the use of color and tones to
Absolutely
describe
fantastic. That was my favorite part of the film, was the production and set design, and especially the color, like the red floors, which is used so well later when everybody is really like peaking and having a bad time. But what I pointed out about the cinematography in this film is that a lot of psychedelic films, they like to do like point of view shots of what people are hallucinating. Like they want to show you exactly what they're hallucinating. And I actually felt this film was 10 times more effective in showing somebody tripping, because they were showing like just people looking at the wall and not showing what they're hallucinating, but letting you imagine what they are hallucinating or thinking. And I think that's way more effective to show it like that, because I almost think it's lazy sometimes when you show the hallucinations on screen. Like when you show like a kaleidoscope of colors and everything, and it's just like, oh yeah, that guy's tripping. But no, this is way more effective, showing the person just looking at a wall and freaking out. Like I think that is so much better than the ordinary psychedelic film. So I think the cinematography in here was top notch.
It goes back to my original point about the fly on the wall point of view. Like you want to just imagine if you were just somebody staring at somebody who just took a god dose of acid. You'd see a bunch of crazy shit, which is what we end up getting accomplished in this film, for better or for worse. They just, they don't shy away from what they're trying to accomplish. Yeah.
When Selva ends up, she walks down the hallway and then like just stares at the wall that's a forest. You imagine exactly in your head probably what she's thinking right now. It's like she's in the forest wandering through, and then she ends up freaking out again. But like for that brief moment of time, she actually like stops and is okay for a little bit, and then she freaks out.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I think for me, like, it is the one really most redeeming quality of the entire thing was the cinematography, the use of those colors changing, and it changes so slowly that it draws you in more and more just as they're going further and further in. So that I absolutely agree with you, Eric. I think it was fantastic. I think it was the highlight of the entire thing.
And I think it definitely didn't need to put the hallucinations in, because the way they worked the camera made you feel like you were doing drugs as you were watching this film.
Yeah.
So you're seeing, normal in the sense of this movie, normal, right? So you're seeing normal things happen. There's nothing supernatural. There's nothing freaky going on. But because of the way the camera's moving, like when it was spinning on the red floor top down when people are dancing, and it made their bodies so distorted as you're watching them dance, even though they're doing perfectly natural dance moves, it made you feel like you were on drugs and hallucinating already anyway. So you didn't need to be in their heads to get that feeling.
Yeah. And then the upside down shots too, I guess, that's towards the end. I mentioned it, but it made you feel like you were in hell. Like the top of the floor was red. And like you felt like you were having a horrible trip in hell,
right? Especially because all of those scenes come after the idea that Tito just electrocuted himself and shot all of the music and all of the electricity off.
Yep.
So your brain's already going, this kid's dead. Now all of the lights are off, and it's all going to get even more fucked up than it already got fucked up before. And the cinematography and the viewing and the color and all of that shit was really effective on making me just like, I don't want to watch anymore. But I kept on watching.
I wanted to keep watching.
Psychological horror and I do not get along, Eric. Do not get along.
It's my favorite, so.
I do feel that it became a little bit much, though, too. Like, the more that I was just thinking about it with the upside down shots and things, too. Now, Kevin, you said something earlier about it staying really true to its form, and it did here, right? It delivered on what it was supposed to, but it did get to be a little much for me. But again, maybe that's the point, right? You're supposed to feel so unsettled, so maybe that was the point, just to overwhelm me to the point that it felt ridiculous.
Well, and too much to the point too for both of us, honestly, where we paused it at one point, and out of my like peripheral vision, it looked like my entire apartment was still spinning. Like, it was a trip watching the movie. I will say that.
And
during that pause, Dan messaged me, and what does he say? Let's see. This movie is devoid of literally any substance whatsoever, and that was with 40 minutes left to go.
Well, okay,
and it just got worse from there.
Maybe for me, the part that really made me just like enjoy it and have fun actually was the music too. It's like such an amazing soundtrack. I love this like 90s electro dance soundtrack. I could listen to this on my own all the time. And so I was just vibing with the film. Even as it got more fucked up, I was just like, fuck yeah, all right, cool colors, great soundtrack. I know people are freaking out on the screen right now, but this is fun.
But hey, can we just talk for a moment? So it was DJ Daddy, right? Can we just talk about the French pronunciation?
DJ
Daddy. Jetty.
Yeah.
Jetty.
Daddy.
Jetty.
He was the dad of the dance group, very
Yeah,
much so.
goth
He seemed
dad.
like the most mature of everybody, even more mature than the dance teacher that was like the choreographer.
Oh yeah, people were going
Yeah,
to him
the
for
buttoned
advice.
up
Yeah.
Help
one.
me, save me.
Yes.
He actually had his shit together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
And even at the end, I mean, he ends up having sex with somebody, but like I still felt like he had his shit together more than a lot of other people that were freaking out. So
Jetty.
Daddy. I don't even know where we're going
we all
with all
need a
that.
daddy. A daddy.
Well, we started talking about cinematography and then divulged into madness, just like this movie.
Well, I mean, yes, yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Makes sense.
And I will say we talked about the boring scenes with the, there's the static camera cuts as people are talking and it just kind of jumps between, and that it got boring, but then the cinematography really ramped up and went to 11. And then I also felt, I would say similar to Dan and Becky with the upside down, maybe stayed around a little bit too long and made me start feeling like I was getting motion sick as I'm watching it. I liked it. But I think some of the stuff just needed to be toned down a bit. And speaking of toned down, things get really, really interesting and very unique in terms of how everybody reacts to the LSD. I mean, we have people running off to have sex. We have people drawing Nazi symbols with lipstick on top of people. We have a girl locking her son into electrical closet that eventually turns out all the light, and then we get into like even incest and stuff like that. Was there
Hair on fire?
Hair on fire.
Oh, yeah.
Do you think I guess what was the most memorable scene everyone had, and was there a point where it became maybe too much or over the top, or do you think that it needed to keep pushing that? Kevin, you seem like you wanted to start off.
The most memorable / and over the top scene comes together in both, and it is when is it Dom, the blonde, the bald lady? Is that her name?
Yes.
Oh.
Wait, are you talking? I don't know her actual, but like the scene where it's
the black
pregnant
gold
woman.
lady is dumb.
The violent pregnant lady scene was hard to watch. I'm going to admit, just that whole thing. The violence towards her, the kicking of the stomach, all of the violent reactions, her irrationalness to explanation of real life.
Oh my God, is Dan
shit.
doing LSD right now?
Oh my God!
No!
In his
Dan is
eyes.
putting a water droplet into his eye right now.
I'm
LSD.
putting Bosch and Lom's Opcon A, A24 on the Rocks, sponsored by
that sounds
Bosch
very
and Lom's
German,
Opcon
like a
A.
German chemist.
It was during
it's the best
interviews.
allergy eye drops in the entire world, and I'm having allergies right now. It is not LSD.
I bet they are. Go ahead.
I don't even know where, but yeah, that scene was super hard to watch. I mean, we're talking about someone who is tripping acid while dealing with the fact that they're pregnant and revealing it to folks, especially if you take the context of them being in a dance troupe that's about to go touring. You can't be pregnant while doing that. And then this happening and the violence towards her and just the irrationalness, it was hard. It was wild. It was hard. It was memorable because of how hard it was to watch. The rest of the scenes were all kind of tame in comparison, and that one was whoa. So yeah, I think that's my pick.
I agree. Hard to watch. Very hard to watch. But it also lacked meaning for me because, again, and the more that I think about it, the more that I think that maybe the story didn't really matter. And maybe I'm too fixated on the story. But for me, it was like it just lacked substance other than the fact that they were using violence as the substance of the story. Right. So maybe, again, that was the point. But to me, it felt so over the top and so like what you kind of expected to happen. So I didn't really feel all that shocked by it.
It's fair.
What about you, Becky?
I do agree that that part was very hard to watch for me as well, but I actually think a following scene, very much related, was harder for me to watch. So the pregnant chick, is what are the names, right? So the pregnant chick, she wasn't tripping, she wasn't drinking. That's where a lot of that aggression came from, because they were all saying, oh, whoever didn't drink must have been the one who did it, right?
Mob mentality going on.
Yeah.
You're right.
I mean, what's his face loses his life because of it. So
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
what's his face?
But then she comes back out, and on that mob mentality piece, then everybody starts yelling at her. She's not fucked up at all, except that she's French, right? That's the only thing she has going for her right now. But then all of these trippers, if that's even a term, I'm not a good drug addict, but all of these trippers, right? They're yelling at her. They're telling her to hurt herself, to cut herself, to take her knife to her stomach.
Hard,
And they took this fully lucid person and turned her mania into herself as well, without needing any added substance to make it happen.
Yeah, you're right.
That was what was hard for me to watch.
That's a really good point.
I think the brother-sister thing was the hardest for me to watch, but that was also because I have two sisters, and that's just like the grossest thing to me. Like, it was already gross, like when he was being protective of her, and I kind of like in the back of my head, like, does he like have something for her? And then it ends up happening, and as it was happening, I'm just like, no, gross, stop. But again, this is a film about people on acid freaking out, so.
Yeah.
I do appreciate. Sorry, Cole. I just want the last 2 seconds. As I do appreciate that everybody had a unique experience, right? That for the most part, they all were different, whatever they were going for, which I thought was important. So.
Yeah, my scene that went too far, or that was the brother sister. I also have 3 sisters, so when that happened, I was just like, you got it. We've already pushed the envelope on a lot of things. Like the scene with the that we talked about, where kicking the pregnant woman in the stomach, that was extremely violent, and then it just even ramps it up further, as Becky talked about, and then it just drops hey, what about incest? Let's get into that now. And I'm like, we gotta figure out where are we. I don't know.
Thankfully they didn't show the body of the dead child. But if they showed the little kid dying, that would have been tough.
They showed the body
I think we got spared that a bit.
They did show the body.
They did the overhead of his
body of the kid.
Yeah, the overhead when the cops show up. They just show his fetal position right in front of the cabinet. Yeah.
Oh, I thought they just showed the mom.
No.
Maybe I missed that somehow. Okay.
So I mean, you could interpret whether or not he's sleeping. Yeah. You could interpret if he is sleeping and she killed herself for nothing, because that's where I was at. It was like,
that's what
what
thought.
If he didn't do it and the power just shut off for another reason, and she killed herself for no reason at all, and he's alive like everybody else?
It all just becomes violence as the substance. That's it, right? And that's what I keep going back to, because I'm reading my notes, right? And that was how I felt. It was all of this, but it just came back to I wrote here, we only feel bad for her because she's pregnant. That's it. We know nothing about her, nothing about her story. It's just, and I guess you didn't have room for that in a film like this, but it was why do I care?
So some of my favorite films, I'll just say though, this gives more context into why I liked it, are films where it all takes place in one night and mostly one room. I love when you just put a bunch of people into one room and they slowly devolve into insanity. Those are some of my favorite films of all time, and that's probably why I also like this film. So.
Probably.
No, I was just gonna say, Tito, the kid, he was tripping too. He drank the sangria that was spiked. That's part of why he got put in the closet, right? But again, why do we need the kid?
So here's my 2 cents on that.
Even the characters were asking why.
No, well, okay, Emmanuel.
It is horror, for sure.
I know we're not about names, but we talked about the lady was a former dancer, and so she's got a relevance to the story, and the kid was the only thing that she was proud of in her life, right? But she has nowhere else to go, so she has to keep the kid. If you've ever been around somebody who shouldn't have had a kid very young, and they have to keep that kid around them in a situation that is awkward. I have been in a small town where someone who had a kid at 16 or 17 had that kid around in a position where they probably shouldn't have, and it was awkward. But it was also real. It was real. So for me, it was what do you do if you don't have a choice. If you don't have a partner, you don't have a daycare, you don't have a babysitter, and your career and life depends on this gig that you have to choreograph, and you have to do something with your kid. Now, obviously, they never drink LSD, drank or laced sangria, but I guess the realism of this film was not lost on me, and that part was also real to me as well.
Well, I guess if you want to get into a point or substance of the film, I would also say it's a film about, like, how easy is it for the worst parts of our nature to come out and for us to devolve into complete ugly mob mentality, you know? I think a lot of films that show people in one room, in one place, in one time, it's usually about that. Like, how easy is it for everybody to just devolve into, like, killing each other, basically? Like, there's... like, I think of The Mist is another good, I would say a good film that kind of shows that. Classically, there's that Twilight Zone episode where, like, the aliens, you know, are watching them, and it all takes place on one street, and they're all, like, scared of, like, who the communist is and who might be killing each other. Like, yeah, I forgot the name
monsters,
of that, but
the
monsters on Elm Street or something?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But, these are all kind of in the same vein to me, except this is way more pitched up because we have acid in the equation as opposed to the other things. So, that's how I saw this movie, at least.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I don't even know where we're going with that, but that's a great discussion.
Well, I'm just trying to put,
it.
tell, or what I took away as the point of this film.
Yeah.
Is like, how easy is it for the worst parts of our nature to come out?
And I think it was the intention.
That's all that I could assign to it, right? I think I said that earlier. Like, there was the character psyche, right? So it was the human psyche warped with the acid, right? So, that was all that I could take from it. But for me, I think that was part of the problem because that felt so old and stale, right? It just seemed like an idea that's been explored in so many different ways. And, like, the little twist of the LSD didn't do enough for me to make it a fresh enough, novel enough idea.
You don't think, like, the way it was shot and the music and everything was unique, or?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But I think that you could
I thought that made it fresh, at least. But
oh, yeah, but I think that you could apply that to a lot of different films, too. But, yeah, I mean, there's an artistic expression that I do think is unique. But, again, as watching the movie just to enjoy it, I think the lack of the story there sort of takes away from it.
Okay.
Do you guys think that if you were put in that situation where you're at a group gathering with some somewhat strangers, and you all get spiked with LSD, do you think that you would divulge or everyone would divulge into like their worst version of themselves?
I mean, there's
I
LSD and there's
depends on
100
the other
fucking
people in the room.
tabs.
Yeah, that's what this movie shows. Is like if somebody else is being violent and fucked up, you're gonna give it back to them. You know, it's all like give and take there.
There's just the volume of acid that I imagine these people took. We're
Yeah.
talking is just insane compared to a recreational amount that you and I or everyone on this podcast has tried.
That's why it's so hard to know, like, Cole, your question, like, I really don't know how I'd react because I've always taken a recreational dose, and again, only a few times when I was younger, so I have no idea.
Part of the reason why I asked this question is because they say that this is based off of a true event that occurred, and the only, I guess, the true part is that a French dance group had a rehearsal, they finished it, and they all got spiked with LSD. But nothing happened after that. They all just kind of hung out and got high off of LSD, and then they went home afterwards. So that's a pet peeve of mine, where I hate when movies are like, say this is based off a true story, and it's either not a true story.
I think they were doing a bit of the found footage thing, though, weren't they?
Yeah,
like they were saying it was based off a true story, but it really wasn't. Like,
yeah, I mean, I get it, but I guess their true story is, well, a bunch of people took LSD once, so now this is a true story. I don't know. I feel like if you're doing that, it's a cheap trick, and I don't like it.
Well then, okay, what do you think of like Quentin Tarantino films that historically rewrite history?
Well, I love Inglourious Basterds, but I don't think he says that it... Does he say it's based off a true story?
No, but like it's historically rewriting history.
Yeah, those are fine. I'm saying when in the film where they have a title card and they're like based off a true story from 1996, and it's the only true part is a bunch of French people who danced, got drugged with LSD, and then The rest of it is just.
But I think it's asking like a what if. Like, okay, what if people
again,
like there was actually a few violent like assholes in that group that started freaking out. So,
yeah, agreed. Yeah. We're talking about making up a story versus telling a story and saying that it actually happened.
Yeah,
that's my pet peeve.
My point is, film does that often. That like Blair Witch Project said it was based on your story. That's why I'm saying it's a pet peeve of mine. It was based on your story.
Don't do it, people. Stop lying. Go ahead, Dan.
No, I feel like the original story was almost as exciting as the story in the movie.
Which means not.
Pretty much.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's talk about. We talked about cinematography. We've obviously dived into a whole bunch of stuff. We've kind of touched on the acting and how none of these were actual real actors, and they were all mostly professional dancers, and that this was mostly an improv skit. Or not skit. Everything was improv from the movie standpoint. Eric, what do you think about everybody's ability? Like, again, there wasn't a lot of, actual dialogue between people. So this is more of like a physical acting. Do you think everyone portrayed their roles well in terms of, acting chops?
Yeah, no, very well. Like I was saying, like I could like literally imagine what they were thinking at all points. Whenever they were freaking out, like, especially, I mean, well, definitely, Sofia Boutella, she was the jewel of this whole film. When she put her hands in her tights and just started trying to lift up her tights,
that was such a good
I know exactly
scene.
Where you're at, girl. Like, it's like you want to be out of your skin and out of your body right now. You are so uncomfortable. So a lot of the physical acting made me feel exactly like how they were feeling. I understood what they were going through, and it's kind of amazing that they were able to portray that with improvising and just like these long shots and everything.
I'm with Eric 1,000%. I feel like my experience with what it feels like to be on LSD matched with the physical acting of these guys. Obviously, it's a completely different dosage level, but there was a lot of parallels to how I remember feeling during that experience. Like, you just want to touch yourself. You just want to be all over everything. You just want to dance. You just want to experience it all. And they did a good job of taking that and hyping it up to 100.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think another like high point of this film, cinematography, started off slow but got really good, and then kind of overstayed its welcome a couple times. And then the acting, I think the fact that none of these people were really, any of them are really classically trained actors or anything at all. And then this script, again, the script was 5 pages for this whole movie. But, Eric, like you said, the way that they were able to use the camera, and then the actors were able to kind of physically show you how they were feeling. And I liked how you put it where, a lot of films talk about drugs. They just show you a kaleidoscope and show you pretty colors. And it's like, this is what it's like, man. And in reality, it's not. And then this, they kind of flipped it where they show you the person going through this experience, and you don't really see anything, but you can understand it. So, Becky, do you have any input on Becky or Dan on the acting chops or how they was portrayed throughout this film?
So I have 2 very different opinions. I have the opinion while I was actually watching the movie, and I was like, who are these people? Is this what French cinema puts out? Is this what French talent is? Like, I was not impressed at all while I was watching the movie, but I was intrigued enough by the movie to go read up a little bit after we had watched it. And that's when I learned that it was amateurs. It was filmed in 15 days, something like that. Right. And
they did it all within a few months to make the film, Cannes Film Festival. So.
Right. I mean, it's incredibly fast. People have never done this before. And reading through a lot of that, learning about the style and the technique, it's where I learned about what a long shot was when I was reading after the movie. So reading through that did shift my opinion quite a bit. I gained a lot more respect for the art behind the film. I don't like the story. I don't like the story if it's there. Right? But I gained a hell of a lot more respect after reading about how it was actually made. And a big part of that was the acting coming from people who have never acted before.
And I completely agree with Becky. I think, looking at it through that lens, like, watching the movie and watching some of them like writhe around on the floor, I'm like, this is like a high school drama production, right? That's looking at it the lens in a mainstream film, right? And so I think when you look at it through the lens of, wow, they filmed this really quickly with a bunch of people, like Cole said, that were not classically trained actors, then I think you're actually doing pretty well because, it makes more sense through that lens.
Speaking of another, I guess, unique thing about this film, and we touched on it a little bit at the beginning, and then it happens in the middle, and then the ending with it's the kind of reverse title cards. So we start with all of the credits at the very beginning, and then it's like 42 minutes or like 20, I don't know, it's somewhere in the middle. They do all of the actors' names, and then the very end of the film is just the name of the film, and it's like the last 4 seconds, and then it ends and it does no credits. And it kind of touches on what Eric talked about with this director, is his playing with time and things like that. Kevin, what was your thoughts about kind of that reverse transposition type thing that occurred, and do you think it added, distracted, or what was your thoughts on that?
So it's always helpful going into a film knowing that A24 has a certain expectation about it. So for me, anything weird happening in a film, if I know it's an A24 film, is not abnormal or out of place. Even something where you're throwing credits in the beginning or a title card 25 minutes in or whatever it is, we have seen a couple of these films in our past where we've seen title cards in odd places. And I'm just always think about it like, okay, it's a director or a writer or whoever it is trying to insert something different. But what's super unique is I've never seen it like this film. Like, never did we do a rolling, scrolling credit list 5 minutes into the film when we started seeing soundtrack credits before we even heard the songs. We heard we saw a bunch of different lines and things. That was unique as hell. Anytime you just do something different in a film, it makes me intrigued. Again, I mentioned this earlier. The difference between watching a film and reviewing a film is super, super different. In the time, in the moment, whatever your mode is, whatever your brain is, whatever, you're watching a film, you're enjoying it a certain way. When you stop, like Becky has talked a couple times, you read things, you look at interviews, you digest things a certain way. We've been talking about this film for an hour. My opinion is now different than it was an hour ago. That's okay. That's a good thing. That just means that the art itself is enough that we can have an open conversation about it, and I just really appreciate that from the entire perspective. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Anyone have any other inputs on kind of the play with the title cards, Becky?
I thought it tied into the very circular storyline that it had. We started at the end of the story, and the final scene that we saw within the story was a continuation of that end, right? So it was a circular storytelling starting at the very end. So the credits tied into that backwards planning very well, because you get the final scrolling piece first, the last one that you see. Then in the middle, you see the individual names popping up on the screen tied into the story that they are trying to tell, because everybody's starting to trip a lot harder by the time those names pop up on the screen. And it makes you feel like you're tripping harder as you're watching the movie too. So the backwardness of it fit the whole style of the movie to me, and I really enjoyed it.
I think you're starting to make me feel like a grumpy old man.
You are.
Because to me, like, it was super cool at the beginning. I think we touched on that earlier. Like, I thought it was really cool. It was really unsettling. You had this like super washed out, bright, color space, and you had the kind of, unsettling music in the background. It just made you feel uncomfortable, right? But then when it popped up, 42 minutes in, I was like, it's where I started to lose some of my enjoyment of the cinematography, of the sort of artistic style, because it started to feel repetitive to me. I started to see a lot of the same camera tricks, right? And it just, these title card things, it was like, it was already kind of losing me on the repetitiveness. And then it happened again. And I didn't like it.
All right. Let's just jump to the kind of the conclusion of this film, where basically everyone's trip eventually ends, and a group of cops show up and, pry open the door and find kind of the aftermath. Eric, what were your thoughts on how this film ended and kind of concluded this wild ride.
Like I was saying earlier, when they did the upside down shots and everything, yeah, I felt like I was in hell, and I thought it was such a cool visual of just, it was getting, like, the floors were bright red throughout the night, but as the night progressed, it got darker and darker too. And then when the cops finally open the door, you get that big, like, flash of brightness and light, and then all these people come in and they're like, what the fuck went on here? And I could only imagine, like, what the cops were thinking at that point. And then obviously, yeah, you get like you get another shot of the bleeding pregnant woman that we saw obviously at the start. And I really loved how the film ended, because I was like wondering who the hell spiked the sangria the whole time. Mm-hmm. And then just showing the German woman, and that you think back to her interview at the very start where she said she had to leave Berlin because she was taking too many drugs and everybody around her was taking too many drugs. And then it's just that slow, like, demented shot up, like a Dutch angle of her just, like, taking more acid. And yeah, I loved that ending. I really enjoyed that, actually.
What about you, Kevin?
Oh, man. What to say about the ending? I really liked the idea that the cops would come in, because the come down from LSD is very much what this film kind of portrayed. You're laying down, you feel pretty exhausted, you're just kind of like, what the hell happened? And they posed each person that was involved in a different way. Some of them were alive, some of them were dead, some of them were bleeding, some of them were perfectly fine with loved ones, like
contorted until they were broken.
All of those things. They did a good job of taking the linear progression of these storylines from going interview, pre-tripping, tripping, and post. So we had 4 different kind of posts, or 4 different elements of all of these characters, and at the very end you kind of get a bit of a resolution. Honestly, you kind of just feel like, okay, some of them survived, like I mentioned earlier, and some of them died, and whatever else. But I wasn't mad at it. I think I was most mad during, and I'll get to my review, kind of like just the middle parts, that there was nothing progressing, just a POV of people tripping. But as I digest all of it together from beginning, middle to end, I still appreciate the way that the film kind of wrapped up and buttoned the story, quote unquote, because there really wasn't a story. It was just mostly, this was 24 hours of a viewpoint. Enjoy it for what it was.
All right. Does anyone have anything that they want to talk about in this film that we haven't touched on, or anything they want to reiterate before we get into our reviews? Becky, go ahead.
So that final review with the German girl, she's the one whose name's Psyche, right? And as they're showing her putting the LSD drops in her eyes there at the end, right, they also show what's in her bag, and it's books on basically using acid to cleanse. It's not cleanse your soul. I can't remember what it actually said, right? But some sort of how to use acid to clear your mind and open your mind type thing. And so I don't think they really left it with a question as to who did spike it, because aside from the scene earlier where she's just standing there pissing on the floor for like a minute and a half.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
Yeah, I can't believe we never touched on that.
Bit of Orange is the
How
New
do we
Black
miss
there.
that scene?
Right?
But aside
That was
from
the least
that,
crazy part.
well, exactly. And she had the least crazy moments. Yes, she was standing there at the end dancing alone when everybody else is either dead or broken in some way, shape, or form. And she's standing there dancing, but that made sense to me. She's still in her own world. And then
And
she
probably
continues
controlled
to
her
stay.
own dosage, right?
Right. I mean, she was drinking the sangria, but she knew how much she put into it. And it's not like they're keeping track of how much anybody is drinking. But I did feel like if this movie had anything going for it, as I was starting to lose the story of it, they tied it together well. And I think that was a good hint of a resolution, even if it's not a super clear one.
It felt a little bit to me like the unwilling French Jonestown. So it was like, somebody spiked the punch and now everyone's dead.
Yeah.
So I
Unwilling
guess like
French
he was like Jim Jones. Yeah. That's exactly in my notes. Unwilling French Jonestown question
Love
mark.
that.
So yeah, I don't know. I mean, it resolved, right? I think it had to. There had to be something there, right? Again, because there was so little, in my opinion, substance. So yeah, there had to be something there, and I think that was kind of my final feeling.
I do want to take or add just what one more person took away from this film. His name was Travis Bean, and he wrote as a journalist. He wrote, when we dig beneath the bare bones of the plot, we find a movie that's about the fear of pursuing your full potential. The movie posits that it's not the world that prevents us from realizing our dreams. It's the internal angst and existential roadblocks we often place in front of ourselves. So,
Sure.
that's one way to take it.
I'll believe that every day.
Dan
enough.
does not agree,
No, no.
Existential roadblocks. I like that.
I do think that the inner angst of everybody and like everything happening inside of them comes out tenfold after they get spiked with the acid. So, or maybe we're just looking at like in one night where all these people end up anyway. So,
Well, and those feelings coming out, they are connected to those interviews at the beginning of the movie. They're asking specific questions about your fears, your personality. What might we be seeing when all of this goes down? And those interviews were actually filmed after the entire movie. They added those interviews to the movie, I think after its original release, even if I remember right. It was for the home release of the movie that they added those interviews in.
Unique.
It's a good tidbit.
Unique New York.
All right. Well, let's get into our reviews. So here at the A24 on the Rocks podcast, we give reviews of every single film we watch. We give them a ranking from A24 to F24, maybe even an E, depending on how you're feeling. As we let's you know what, Kevin, you go first.
Oh yeah,
you gave
for my
me a
face.
stink eye. So
Give him the stink eye for the E24, and I get selected for the first fucking guinea pig.
tell me about
I
your,
deserve that. All right.
your review.
So, I've mentioned in the podcast, I've mentioned it 100 times before, the difference between watching a film, enjoying it while watching it, versus reviewing it and watching it or enjoying it. This is very apparent in this film for me. I watched this with my wife. We were sitting at home. I didn't have any background. I was like, we're just going to sit and just enjoy, quote unquote, this film. And I'm never going to fault A24 for giving me a different viewing experience. I mean, I really am not. I have gotten used to it now, and it's not completely off-putting when I find something that is not the norm of a cinematic viewing experience. Now, while watching this, I did not really enjoy myself. There wasn't a moment where I was like, this is great. How could you not be like, this is fascinating? It was an art house film. It was trippy. It was weird. And it was really hard to separate the viewer from the reviewer. And that is the difficulty here, is watching a film knowing you're going to have to talk about it and digest it and break it down versus watching a film and truly appreciating it if you were someone at the cinema who would just go to watch it for the sake of watching it. We don't get that luxury, and we can't separate it. At least I can't. It's hard for me to separate it. If it's a film that I've never seen before, it's like I can't really make my brain not go, well, you're going to have to say something about it, so you need to be paying attention in one way or another. I liked this film enough to not just be like, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, but I certainly know that there are higher elevated psychological horrors that A24 has given me that I really enjoyed. Coming away from The Killing of a Sacred Deer, coming away from Hereditary, coming away from some of these bigger ones that have psychological horror elements in them, but have a better story and a better just general aspect, makes me kind of think this is a little lower on the tier of A24 films. So for all those reasons and more, I think I'm going to just give this one a solid, just like a C24. I really didn't enjoy it, but I enjoyed talking about it. It was unique. It was art housey. It was different. It does not get in the F or D because of all those things, but it certainly wasn't like, I love it, I'm going to tell everyone they should go watch it, so it gets in the A and B. That's why C is for me, C24, and I'm curious to see what the rest of you guys do since I was the guinea pig on this one.
All right, I think our next up will be Dan.
So, like Kevin mentioned, I do think that the conversation did bring up some points and give me some perspective, but there's a big but here. It doesn't change my overall feeling. I think that it was a very trite story. It was artistically beautiful. I think, a lot of the things we talked about, the cinematography, the use of the lighting and the soundscape was pretty incredible. So I think that was enjoyable. But for me, that was it, right? Because even if the story is what we're saying that it was, this exploration of the human mind and what people do in these Lord of the Flies type situations, it was so trite. Like, all of those things were things that you've seen before, you've heard before. It's just like there was nothing new there. And for me, the story and the enjoyment of the story is the core of why I watch a film. I love the artistic things. I enjoy talking about that almost as much as I do the story. But for me, strictly on a viewing pleasure basis, I need to like the story. And there was no story here for me. So, for all those reasons and more, it is a D for me, just a solid D24. Certainly not the worst thing that I've ever seen, and the artistic elements definitely boosted a little bit, but I wouldn't watch it again.
Fair enough.
Fair. Yeah.
All right, I'm going to jump in next. So I will say this film falls into one of probably the most unique aspects or unique kind of realms of all the films we've reviewed, where if I had a friend that wanted a recommendation on some like high art house type film, I would recommend this 100%. I think this fits that, and I think it kind of does a lot of weird, unique things, and there's stuff that bothers me from this film, from some of the dialogue choices, the static camera, and then it kind of redeems itself a little bit, but then it overstays its welcome. And I'm very torn on, I guess, the idea of this film. And maybe that's the whole point of an art house film, is it makes you kind of break down what is film supposed to be. Because, watching it, I wouldn't say this was an enjoyable watch for me. I didn't watch it and, feel glee or certain emotions or things like that. I felt more of just kind of taken aback, and a lot of times it was hard to watch some, during some of the scenes. But talking about it, I think it's a very good movie that brings up a lot of like good conversation and things like that. And, talking more and more about it makes me appreciate it more, and having some different views from like Dan to Eric on the, polar opposites brings a lot of, good conversation and unique views, which makes me appreciate it more. But if any of my family members were like, hey man, what's a movie you from A24 you recommend? This would not be one of them. This would not be a movie I recommend to most just your, Joe Blow average movie goer type person. I think if you want a unique experience and see something different, this is one of those films that I would recommend. And with all that being said, it's not like it was an enjoyable experience, but I like talking about it. So I think with just the weird ether and kind of where it exists, I just have to give it a C24. It's right in the middle. It is what it is. Honestly, if I could just not give it a ranking and just say it's over there somewhere and it's a movie,
The first one that's just like, I can't even
probably
put a letter
what I
on
would
it.
do.
Well, think of how much we've struggled to actually describe this film tonight. So
Yeah,
I
it's
feel so conflicted. Yeah.
And that's, again, makes me like it, but also hate it at the same time. So
It also makes me really excited for Eric's fucking eval whenever
we're gonna
we get to
We're
it.
gonna let Eric be the last voice.
There you go.
So we'll have Becky go next.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree with everything that you guys have said, and so I think our ratings come down to where our priorities are in a movie that we want to see, and the idea, Kevin, that you had mentioned, and Cole, that you'd alluded to, of separating the analytical mind from the pleasure mind, right? Separating the watcher from the reviewer. That thought to me is completely unfathomable. everything that I read, everything that I watch, everything that I do, I analyze in a way like this because it's how my brain works. I can't make sense of things if I'm not looking for these connections, looking for that connection between the character name, psyche, and the exploration of what the human soul is when it's allowed to be whatever it wants to be. And I love analyzing things like that. So my enjoyment of this movie for this particular style of movie is less important because I got to think so much while watching this movie, even when I didn't realize that I was thinking. And so I give it a solid C plus 24. Again, I do have to enjoy it a little bit to hit in that B range. I don't inflate my grades. I never have. It pisses my students off. Right? And I didn't
There's
particularly.
no curve here.
Yeah,
There's no curve. There's no participation trophies. That doesn't exist for me.
Let's go.
But
You also
it
have a
needs
good
to have
education
some.
system down there, unlike up here. So
Well,
Linda McMahon.
not nationally, no.
So yeah,
well, probably better than ours.
Anyway.
But yeah, no, C plus 24. I love films that make me look for connections and analyze pieces. And I know that there's so much that I have not caught in this, but I don't have the mental capacity to watch this movie again. So I cannot put it into the B range.
All right. Eric, let's round us out.
All right, so I'll start out my review with a little Stanley Kubrick quote. A film is or should be more like music than like fiction. It should be a progression of moods and feelings. The theme, what's behind the emotion, the meaning, all that comes later. So I kind of, when I watch this film, I think of that quote. I think I was just divulged into this film with all of its colors and production and design and the music. I was like on a ride. And I think this movie, like Quentin Tarantino kind of said, like 2019 was the last year of movies. And this film feels like even a movie that isn't made nowadays, even though it happened like 5 or 6 years ago now. It's just kind of like a fun, fucked up movie. And I feel that genre is kind of missing from film nowadays. There's like a lot of fucked up movies, but not like fun, fucked up movies that put you just on a ride and you just don't know where you're going to go. And I think we'll see a few more of those this year in our A24 catalog, like Midsummer. I also think is, that kind of vein too, where it's just fun and fucked up. And yeah, all that put together, also just how it was made. And, I didn't get to touch on the credits, but like the, graphic design of the credits was just really beautiful to me, actually. I loved all of the graphic design and font choices, which is a weird thing that I've noticed more with film, that really gives me a brain tickle. All that put together, this is my kind of, this is my kind of film. I love fun, fucked up movies. So I'm gonna be unique and alone in this, but I'll give it an A minus 24.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
What's the average
Live
grade
dangerously,
up a bit?
buddy.
What a divergent scale. Wow. Yeah.
D through A. Have we ever had a film that went D through A?
I
Slow
feel like
West. You loved it. I hated
Yeah.
it. So
I gave that like a B something though.
Eric and I were on
yeah.
Slow West's winner side.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm sure we've had another film with an A.
That's still
through
pretty
D.
unique.
yeah,
Regardless.
I also-
that is.
I also
Go ahead,
feel
Dan.
like, however, that Eric and I, having been the extremes of the range, we both came in, I think, already knowing what we were going to say at the end. And I don't feel like, my mind changed, and I don't think Eric's did too much from the conversation.
No,
either.
I think that your opinions actually made me like think more about why I might like this film. Like it made me double guess it for sure. And
Okay.
but I had to like really dig deep to think like, why did I enjoy this film when I watched it? Maybe I'm just demented and fucked up, but yeah.
You actually had to defend your thesis.
Yeah, that's probably why.
Yes.
That too, yeah. Which is
great.
why I love, film criticism.
I love it
you know,
too, exactly
Yeah.
for that reason.
Makes you think about why you like things in general.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was
Yeah.
to me the most fun of the three that we've done so far.
Well, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully more of many to come.
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this is
Do you know the way? Do you know
Becky,
the way?
this is the.
Becky, you must go to the well. The children need water.
Becky can't go anywhere. Becky can't hear anything. Salty almost ate my headphones.
They say, "Good luck, Jonathan."
10 feet tall right now.
All right, are we done?
Strong as an ox.
No, all right. Cole's got to close it out.
I gotta do the extra.
Take us home.
Exit.
Outro time.
Outro, that's what it's called. All right. Thank you everyone for listening. This is A24 on the Rocks. We review A24 movies in chronological order. We're in 2019. If you like us, please like and subscribe. Give us 5 stars. Give us everything. Comment. I don't know. Send Kevin an email. Tell him he's got a great voice.
Why me? I didn't do what?
I'll put your email address all over social media, and I'll say,
send me
if you have any gripes with our criticism,
take it out with me.
Send it to Kevin.
If this podcast gets 2 likes, we're gonna dox Kevin. Let's go.
I'm pretty sure he has a Hotmail address.
Oh yeah, still. Did I at one point? I might have. I
we all
was
had a Hotmail.
being the official customer service representative of A24 on the Rocks. I'll do it right now.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, you heard it here first, folks. All right, well, I appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate all the listeners. I love you all. Have a good night. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.
What am I listening to? What is that?
What is happening?
Wait, this is supposed to be a song.
This is
Wait,
awful.
it gets better.
Fucking
What the
stop
fuck?
it. Immediately
I'm back in this
stop it.
terrible movie.
All right.
Good try.
What's happening?
Good night, friends.
Dan's out.
Bye.
Bye.